Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's forum with our county executive, Mr. Mark Elrich, where we will discuss 2026 budget. You are welcome to Mount Calvary Baptist Church. My name is Brian Bellamy. I am the 9th pastor of Mount Calvary Baptist Church. We are honored to host this event to discuss the African American community's concerns with regards to the 2026 budget. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this place and space, this church was founded 123 years ago by former enslaved persons and their children. And for generations, we've continued to build upon their sacrifices. And so my perspective as the pastor is that this space is a space that the ancestors have left to us to build upon. So we try very hard to open up to members of the community that need a space, especially for issues like tonight's meeting and other positive concerns. That being the case, we know that there's food insecurity in the county that may be exacerbated by what's going on in the federal government. At this church, there's 6 to 8 food distribution meetings per month. And so if you know anyone that's hungry in the month of November, please send them to Mount Calvary. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m. they can come to the parking lot, and then on the first and third Thursdays they can come right here in the Life Center. We are watching what goes on in the national scene, and we're prepared to add to that, and we're also working with community partners to create additional opportunities. Additionally, this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. if you are able to give blood, our church is partnering with Delta Sigma Theta, Kappa Alpha Psi, the National Council of Negro Women, and the American Red Cross to collect blood, particularly for the sickle cell crisis. We are sickle cell advocates in this church, and so if you're able to give blood, please come out this Saturday. And so again, we say to you, welcome, and we hope that tonight's conversation and this forum is positive, and that we are able to create some good traction for our community. At this time, we're going to return the mic over to Mr. Frederick Hawkins. All right.
All right, good evening. All right, thank you all for coming out. I see a lot of beautiful faces. Thank you so much for being here. I want to say welcome to the FY27 Operating Budget Community Conversation with County Executive Mark Elrich. My name is Frederick Hawkins, and I'm the African American Community Liaison for Montgomery County, and I'm honored to be here. I have to say that I've been in the role a little over a year. I've worked with many of you. I'm proud to say that. I want to say thank you for the trust and support that I've received during the year. And I do acknowledge that there is a lot more work to be done, and we're going to do it. All right. I want to say thank you to our host tonight, Reverend Moultrie and Mount Calvary Baptist Church, a pillar in our community, and it's an honor to host any event in this building. I want to acknowledge and say thank you to the African American Advisory Group. We have many members in the room tonight, all passionate and laser focused on our community, and we'll hear from the co-chairs shortly. I want to acknowledge our partners, department leaders, and elected officials in the room. Special shout out goes to PIO, TEBS, the heroes that never get thanks. So thank you guys for your work, and OMB. It's a difficult job, and thank you for your work. We have one elected official in the House tonight. We have Council Member Kristen Mink. Make some noise. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we see you. All right, so keep up the great work. We have some department heads I'd like to acknowledge here. We have Dr. James Bridgers, the great Dr. James Bridgers, and we have the great Keisha Davis. Shout out to Keisha Davis. Yep. From OMB, we have Natasha Wilkerson. Yep, shout out to Natasha. From East County Regional Service Center, we have Jeru Bande, Chief of East County. The Director of Office of Community Partnerships, we have Sean Ellis. Make some noise for Sean. We also have Rabia Sabakan, Director of Permitting Services. There you go. There you go. Brother, I practiced your name about a few times before I got up here. So thank you, and you're a great man, so appreciate you. We have Darcel Graham. Darcel Graham from Libraries. Thank you for your work. We see you too. And we have Mary Anderson. Is Mary Anderson around? There you go. Shout out to Mary. There you go. All right. There's some community leaders and orgs. We have the Black Ministers Conference, the NAACP, the Montgomery County Black Collective, 480 Club, BACC, and Scotland, just to name a few. Honored to have you here. There you go. Look at you. And yes, so at this moment, I want to bring up the two co-chairs of the African American Advisory Group to just say a welcome, and then we'll get the show started, all right? So what I would like to do is bring up Cherie Branson and Dr. Troy Body. Make some noise.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Cherie Branson. I'm the co-chair of the African American Advisory Group. Dr. Troy Bodie and I have split this duty because, you know, it's a lot to do, and I'm retired. So I want to tell you about what the African American Advisory Group is. We are essentially a group that is dedicated to trying to figure out, work with, and understand the needs of the Black community in Montgomery County. Our charge is to hear that and to convey it to the county executive. This is not a new group. This has been going on for about 30-some years. And so we hope that this meeting tonight allows you to share your thoughts. The county executive is here, and we are happy to reiterate what you iterate. That's our job. I hope I'm asking everyone who is on the African American Advisory Group to just stand and wave right now. Come on, Janice, I see y'all. Y'all look around. If there's something you want known, but you may not want to get on a mic, those are the people, you pull their coattails. So that's my part. Here's Dr. Troy Bodie.
So good evening, everybody. And again, thank you all for coming out tonight to and showing your commitment, advocacy, and working together to make Montgomery County a place where Black citizens can thrive. Our goal tonight is real clear. We're here to share our vision, our needs, our wants, and desires for making this county work for every community member. So I just want to say thank you all for your commitment by being here tonight, by sharing your voices, by speaking truth to power, and by asking hard questions. This budget is more than numbers. It's a reflection of priorities. Let it reflect the belief that when Black Montgomery County citizens do well, the entire community does well. So thank you again for coming out tonight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Troy. Thank you, Cherie. All right. I also want to say that Carla Sylvester from the Board of Ed is here. Didn't want to leave you out. I'm so sorry, Queen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. So above is the agenda. I want to say that this is an important conversation in serious times. I think we all know that in our heart. For the collective. So please listen close, use your voice so it can inform the FY27 operating budget. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up our county executive, Mark Elrich.
So somebody's going to operate this clicker and make this thing change. Yay. Thank you. First of all, thank you all for coming out tonight. And we'll be talking about the budget process and give you an idea of like how much money we have, where the money goes, and how we go about making decisions. We have been, this is a very hard year. It shouldn't be this hard, but it's going to be more difficult as we put this budget together than almost any other year we had to deal with, because when the lunatic who is now president is finished with his federal cuts and his cuts to services, we're going to have a giant hole to dig out. Little things like we've got a Head Start program in our schools, critical for young kids to be ready for school. If we have immigrant children in that program who are undocumented, the money goes away. We can't afford to walk away from Head Start programs. We've got to make sure those things stay in place. The council just acted to put forward money for food. We've got about $27 million in a supplemental in front of them to try to fill gaps that we know we're going to have in terms of services over the coming year. We're going to have to step up to do these things. Food is going to be a problem. Rent is going to be a problem. If he goes forward with mass deportations, which is what he's talking about, this county could lose a substantial part of its population. It has serious implications for many businesses in Montgomery County. And the loss of a workforce means the loss of businesses in many cases, because there isn't a reservoir of unemployed people waiting to take these jobs. If these people are sent out of this country, most likely outcome is things close down. So there's a lot of stuff that we don't have any control over that we're facing, and this is unprecedented. I mean, I feel like I've dealt, in my time as council, as county executive now for 7 years, I had first 2 years of Trump, then I had 2 to 3 years of COVID, depending how you're counting, and now I get to end with 2 years of Trump. And it certainly changes the dynamic of what you're trying to do. I want to talk a little bit about our budget, and the first slide up is about, there are two parts of the county budget. There's an operating budget and there's a capital budget. Tonight we're talking operating. Capital, we did over the summer, we did a series of community meetings like this. We asked people about what kind of capital projects, that's libraries, rec centers, health centers, and all the things that in the county that are physical objects but not really people. That's what goes into capital. That's the buildings, the vehicles, and everything in the county. And then there's the operating budget, which is all the money that goes into making things work in the county. So it's our nurses, our police and fire, it's all our health and human services people, it's the buses, the trash collection, libraries, and parks. Go ahead. The process is what we're in right now. So starting in September, we started meeting with people. When I had gotten elected, the previous practice, they did the community meetings after the budget was more or less put together. We flipped it. We started doing the community meetings before the budget was put together so we can hear from people. And you'll see what our flexibility is, which is less than people think. But we could hear from people on the front end of the budget process. We're now in the November to January period where the Office of Management and Budget starts putting the budget together. We've been working on some of the bigger, I would say, things outside the realm of social programs right now. And by March 15th, I have to send the budget over to the county council. And by the end of May, the county council will produce a final budget. In October to November, the county departments start submitting their requests. Because of the budget circumstances, we've told them to submit a request for what they would like, but also to prepare requests for possible reductions in spending. You can't do this on the fly. We want people thinking about it. If they've got to cut anything, where do you want to cut it? And where's the place with the least impact? I'll be reviewing it in between December and February, and then it'll be over to the council, like I said, for an April to May action by the council. This gives you an idea of Montgomery County's population. This county was 95% white, 4.5% black in 1970. Today, the county is about 38% white, about 16% Asian, about 19% black or African American, 1.1 other. Hispanic population's up close to 22%, and 2 or more races is 5%. So we're a very different county than we were 50 years ago. And the county's managed, I think, the integration of a large number of people better than most places in the country have. And you can get a sense of the population 5 and older who speak a language other than English. There are 43% of the people who speak a language other than English. There are well over 100 languages spoken by the kids in our schools. So this has become an amazing melting pot of people. This gives you an idea of who represents our community. Our county employees, 59% are from racial and ethnic communities other than white. New hires have been 68%, and residents are from different racial and ethnic communities is 59%. So we are a remarkably different community, but our workforce continues to reflect more and more who lives here in Montgomery County. And new hires, 10% of our new hires are either veterans or people with disabilities. We've been focused on a number of things in terms of closing health gaps in the county. This is a place where we may have to do a lot more, because if people are not able to afford insurance, people are going to be kicked off insurance if they can't make the higher premiums that the president is promising. We may have to step up our clinics to be able to serve a population that may not have access to health care. But as it stands right now, the African American Health Program gets $3.3 million. Latino Health Initiative is $4.1 million. The Asian American Program is $2.6 million. And the Black Physicians Network is another $3.7 million. And I will say that in our clinics, where a lot of our healthcare gets done, everybody serves everybody. We have a Muslim clinic. The majority of the people they serve are not Muslim. We have a Jewish clinic, supported clinic. The majority of the people they serve aren't Jewish. Everybody serves everyone here, and this is the way we like it, and it makes us more effective. Montgomery Cares, which provides the clinics, gets $17.7 million. Care for Kids gets $2.4 million. Mobile clinics get 1.1. Community hubs are 3.5, and the countywide initiative has $7.1 million. And I just want to say something about hubs. The county didn't have hubs before COVID. And during COVID, when we realized that the government was not being terribly effective at getting people to get tested, which is what we needed people to do, we started one initiative that revolved around the hub, which was the local community groups who were the most reliable and most trusted people in the community. We started using them for food distribution and then for getting people to get vaccinated, and we realized when it worked for them, it would work for everybody. So now we have 7 hubs, and after COVID ended, I made the decision that we were going to continue to use the hub model because they are more effective at getting us in touch with people in the community than we were doing it as a county government. So that's one good thing, I guess, that came out of COVID. We've made almost a $600,000 investment in the Black Collective. The Black Business Council gets another $86,000. The Black Chamber gets $300,000, and in our procurement contracting, it's $89 million has gone to minority communities, minority and disabled and veteran communities. And we are, I guess this is the year before last for the first time, more than half of the people who won contracts were first-time winners for contracts. And when I came in, everybody treated Montgomery County like it was an old boys network. So people would say, we're not bidding on anything because we know we're not going to get the contract because the contract's going to go to the same people who had it. To get us to the point where half the people getting contracts are new is a big change for Montgomery County, but it's opened the door to a lot more people being able to do businesses. We tell people, with the doors open to everybody, not everybody's going to get a contract, but at least now you got a shot at getting a contract. And so I go to fairs that we set up for the business community, and you see a lot of people out there trying to get contracts because they want to be able to do business here. We have an Office of Community Partnerships, and we engage with the community. You heard from Frederick. This is an important part of what the county does, and we're going to continue to do this. And again, they help us get information out to the community, so they're a conduit both to the community and also from the community. And next. And so our advisory groups, we have the African American Advisory Group, we have a Black Heritage History Group, we have legal representation, and we have the Gilchrist Immigrant Resources Center. So we have a variety of different groups that provide specialized services to people in the county. Housing, I think everybody knows, is a big problem in Montgomery County. It has gotten more and more expensive. The planning board continues to plan more and more for high rises and completely ignores the needs of the people who actually live in Montgomery County. They are also undertaking a series of master plan changes that are actually displacing people from Montgomery County or displacing them from their homes. So we're watching a program that was proposed by the council, passed by the council, plan for University Boulevard, which, if you know who lives on University Boulevard, very diverse. And the people who own houses tend to be landlords, and a lot of the folks are rental. They've encouraged people to tear down the single-family houses and replace them with duplexes and triplexes that will be higher priced, and the people who live there will not be able to come back to that housing. And they were told, they did an assessment about racial equity of their policy. They were told this was racist, and they continue about their merry way in doing the rezoning, and it's a real problem. This is something you'd be familiar with. Park and Planning produced a report. They said the biggest problem in Montgomery County was concentration of poverty. Their solution to the concentration of poverty is to rezone the apartments that people live in for high rises so they can integrate areas that have high poverty with people who look like me and have higher incomes. And, this is DC's pattern of urban removal that goes back 50 years. So some of us have seen this act before. So I encourage people to get involved and pay attention to the planning decisions that the planning board is making, because it will result in a very different county and less room for the people who live here. We've been focused on trying to produce more housing. You can see by the bar graph, 2019 is when I come in, and we've had a steady increase in funding for affordable housing in this county. We've put hundreds of millions of dollars more into affordable housing, $293 million just between FY23 and FY25. We've produced or preserved more than 4,000 affordable housing units in the county. We are working on some even bigger projects. We're engaged with the project in, in the Grove up where, up northern Emory Grove, where there'll be as many as 500 housing units built to restore the community that used to live there and to provide opportunity for people who got displaced in an earlier version of urban removal in Montgomery County. So we're trying to make sure we can provide additional housing for people and have provided at price points that people can afford. We've enhanced and expanded Montgomery Cares and Care for Kids. We've increased support for developmental disabilities and adult medical daycare providers. We've expanded school health services. We made major investments, not just in school health, but we put social workers into the schools. We increased our budget to put more social workers into schools to help the kids there. And we've expanded support for people at risk of experiencing homelessness. And we continue to make that a major investment here. All of this stuff is expensive. The homelessness programs have been $39.2 million between 2019 and 2026. And we continue to look for new ways of providing housing more affordably for people and for getting people off the street. it is important that people not be on the street. During COVID, we actually built a homeless shelter in the middle of COVID because we had put them into a people into a rec center. And when COVID ended, people wanted their rec centers back. And I made a decision and told our government services department to find a building and build a homeless shelter. We built the homeless shelter for 200 people. It held most of the people who were in the rec centers, but it's not enough, and the number of homeless people has grown. So we continue to look for ways to provide that housing and provide it more affordably. All in all, in terms of human services, the budget for HHS has increased about 75% since I've been executive, because this was a priority. The needs in this community are real and deep, and you can't treat them if you're not willing to spend money. That's the reality of the world, so we've been spending money. We've increased our public safety services. We have more medical services through EMS. We have some innovative programs where we have programs that help people who are called frequent flyers, people who really don't need to go to a hospital, but call an ambulance because they just feel they need the ambulance. We've got programs to try to help people like that. We've invested in police recruitment and retention. Our pay now matches the pay in surrounding areas. We're getting rid of the prohibition that if you ever smoke marijuana, you can't be a police officer, because people want to be police officers are going all around Montgomery County because they can go in Fairfax County and become a police officer, but they can't be one here. If you smoked in the last 3 years, that's going to go away. And we have a requirement for a college degree, at least a 60 credit degree, to be a police officer. Again, not everybody does this. It also means that we lose recruits to everybody around the region. If most of the other jurisdictions don't have a college requirement, and if you have to go get 60 credits and you're trying to do that part-time while you're probably having to work part-time, that means you're looking at a 3 to 4 year journey, so people go to where they can get hired. The University of Maryland came out and looked at our training, and they decided they will give people 60 credits for going through our police training academy, which means we can now tell people, if you come here and you go through the training here, we will be able to hire you, and you will get your 60 credits at the end of your training period. So that will put us in a much better position. It helps officers get advancement, and so that it was fair to the officers who've already gone through it. Any officer who's gone through this program will be getting the same credits, which helps them move up the salary level, and it also helps us keep them here in Montgomery County. And we've enhanced the public safety infrastructure here. We actually we use the drones to good effect. They've been very effective both in finding people, but also in keeping incidents from occurring. And the one I like to tell is somebody called in and reported somebody waving a gun at a 7-Eleven. And the police were dispatched there thinking they were going to encounter a gun. A drone got there before the police officers got there and took a picture of the person, and it was called in. It's not a gun, it's a cell phone. And so the police responded as if somebody had a cell phone in their hand rather than a gun in their hand. And that's really important because too many things go south and people act on a hair trigger, and to not have to do that is something that I think makes the community a lot safer. In transportation, we have a zero fare policy. We continue to work at expanding our bus rapid transit. We put $134 million into safety improvements for pedestrian safety. Pedestrian safety continues to be a problem. Drivers run through stop signs, drivers go too fast. People sometimes aren't sober late at night and do not cross at a crosswalk. And combination of all these things has led to more deaths than any of us are comfortable with. And so we continue to make more efforts to make the roads safer. We've got a bus rapid transit project on Veers Mill that'll connect Wheaton to Rockville and to the Montgomery College campus in Rockville. So that will probably be the first true BRT line that gets built in the county. And we are developing a Ride-On Reimagined plan. And one of the things Ride-On does in a couple of areas, it now can provide call-in services. So if you want a bus to come near you, we can get buses to come near you and pick you up, not the big giant buses through the neighborhood, but smaller ones. So schools are the biggest item in our budget. Schools are 54% of the county's total budget. And about 49% of that sits in MCPS, and the other 5% sits in Montgomery College. And as you can see from this chart, the blue lines are county dollars, and the black lines are our dollars plus state dollars. And what you can see is that starting in about 2010, the funding of schools took a drop. And we dropped significantly. And anybody who wonders why the schools struggle, as our school population increased, we were spending less money per pupil than we did before. And it has created a host of problems in our schools. They don't have the staffing. I used to be an elementary school teacher. When I started teaching, I had an aide for my entire day because I was teaching in a high poverty school in Montgomery County. So I had aide support for most of my day. When I left teaching, I was asked to pick which 45 minutes, English or math, that I want an aide for. The population I taught had not changed, but what resources I had really changed. And in schools where you have to teach to multiple different grade levels, it's not like when I was in school when almost everybody came in at about the same point and you all learned together. When you've got classes, and I taught 4th and 5th grade, where you've got kids in 4th and 5th grade at the 1st and 2nd grade level and the 3rd grade level, you're teaching 3 different lessons in the same amount of time as you had to teach one lesson. And so without aides in the classroom, it complicates it because now you don't have the support. You know, if you're working with one group, and we were told we had to have 3 different groups, so you're working with one, and for 60 minutes of your 90-minute block, the kids don't really have a teacher, they're working independently. That is not good for elementary school kids. And so getting the schools properly funding and getting its staff back up is, critical for us. We've been asked for we invested $1.8 billion between 25 and 30. That's in the budget. We've been asked for an enormous increase in the school budget for capital projects. The school maintenance has been neglected for decades. And we have overcrowded schools, which are one problem. We've got schools which need major repairs and have not had the repairs done. So the school system's asking for a very large sum of money to deal with this, and we're trying to figure out how we fit it in the budget because it would be a significant increase over what we're spending today. As far as school and the county go in terms of budgets, the county has no role in the production of the school budget. So don't ask me any school questions. Don't ask me about curriculum. Don't ask me about discipline policy, truancy, or any of that, because the county government has no say over any of those things in Montgomery County. We can't even say we don't want to spend money on this program, and we can't say we want you to spend money on a different program. All those decisions are made by the school board and by the school superintendent. And the county's function has been pretty much reduced to, we have to support the school budget. You have to pay last year's budget plus any increases for enrollment and inflation. The good news for us this year is enrollment has dropped, so we don't have an enrollment inflator. We still will have an inflation inflator, but now it's been averaged over, I think, 2 years or 3 years rather than 1 year. So we don't expect a huge push on the budget this year, but over time there have been some pretty significant increases in budget. But again, the county and the county council, because Kristen's here, so make sure that she's innocent too, they basically get the soup, they get to look over the budget. They have very little to say about, no more than I do, about programming or anything else. The biggest place we have an effect is on capital spending, but capital spending usually means you don't do something you need. And the reason when you see schools backed up, our bond limits in the county have been held at $280 million. And if you were spending, I think there's another chart that shows this. What's the next one? Will you leave that out? Is this the last one? Go to the fun one with there. This is infrastructure, and this shows where we were. That lower line is our spending on capital projects over that's just so tiny, over a 16-year period. We peaked at $340 million a year. If we had adjusted from inflation from that last point where things came close together. If we had kept pace with inflation, we'd be spending $500 million a year on capital projects. We haven't gone anywhere near keeping pace with inflation, which means that schools, rec centers, libraries get delayed. It's really impaired our ability to build infrastructure in the county. One of the things we struggle with is being competitive with Virginia. Virginia has poured money into infrastructure. Montgomery County has been the most miserly of all the regional jurisdictions in terms of putting money into infrastructure. And if you don't put money into infrastructure, you don't compete in the real world. Look at this next one. Rising costs. A ride-on bus costs us almost 3 times as much as it did in 2016. The new school has gone from $361 a square foot to $834 a square foot. A fire engine almost doubled, $685,000 to $1.2 million, and road paving, $390,000 a lane mile, up to $519,000 a lane mile. So inflation changes the way we're able to do things, and the dollars don't go as far as they did before. The tax system in Montgomery County needs restructuring. It was created in an era when most of what was in Montgomery County was residential. Most people were working someplace not in Montgomery County. A lot of them were federal employees. And Montgomery County, if you think about it, and not everybody in this room is old as I am, but if you knew Montgomery County, I grew up in D.C. I was in public schools in D.C. from 54 to 60, and then moved out to Montgomery County. There was no city larger than Rockville, and Rockville was like a microscopic city. Nothing significant in Rockville. Silver Spring was the center of the universe because it had a shopping center in downtown Silver Spring. The trolley lines from DC turned around in Silver Spring. And so that's as far as they went. And all this growth, massive growth in the county, occurred after 1960. And we have not updated our tax structure. So the taxes you pay, you're taxed at the same rate as commercial property is taxed. As you'll see in this slide, one of my favorite slides, this tells you how much you're taxed compared to people around you. And I want you to take a look at those numbers. Montgomery County is on the far left, and then we go across the region. We're at about $2.5 for property tax for both residential and commercial property. If you go to Frederick County, I love it when people say, your taxes are too high, I'm going to Frederick. Because in Frederick, you'll pay $1.11 for property tax for residential and commercial. And you could go to, I'll jump to the next Montgomery County, or next Maryland County. You could go to Howard County, where you would pay $1.33 in property taxes. It's 28 cents, well, 30 cents more than you would pay in Montgomery County. You can go to Fairfax County, where residential taxes are about $1.16, but commercial property taxes in Fairfax County are $1.28. And with that money, they're able to raise substantially more money for infrastructure than Montgomery County is. Not only are they $1.28, but if you're in Tyson's Corner or their other special taxing districts, you're paying close to $1.50 if you're commercial property in Virginia. In Montgomery County, whether you're in downtown Bethesda or rural Montgomery County, you're paying the same $2.5. So Virginia has decided that the way to prosperity is to tax commercial property enough so you can build the infrastructure you need to grow. And Montgomery County's opted for an approach of, we're not going to tax commercial property, we're not going to build the infrastructure we're going to need, and we're going to act surprised when Virginia eats our lunch. But there's actually no reason to be surprised. If you go to Prince George's County, they're at $1.37 for. Their problem is, a little different than ours. Their taxes are that high because their property values are lower. So to get their teachers make what our teachers make, basically, their firefighters and police make what our firefighters and police. They have all of the costs of Montgomery County. They don't have the residential tax base because the property values are lower there. So they're living with $1.37 as a tax rate. If you're in Reston, Virginia, you're paying $1.36 residentially, but you're paying $1.48 for commercial property. And if you go to Washington, D.C., you're paying 85 cents for residential property. But look at the other bar. You pay $1.89 if it's commercial property worth more than $10 million. You pay $1.77 if it's commercial property worth between $5 and $10 million. And you pay $1.66 if it's commercial property worth $2 million and $5 million. And there's not much commercial property in DC that's worth less than $5 million. So you get an idea of how other people have chosen to meet their needs is very different than the path that Montgomery County's chosen. And it has really handicapped us when it comes to our ability to provide infrastructure for people. And the reality is capital projects compete with operating. And if you try to do more capital, it has to come out of operating. If you try to beef up your operating expenses, it takes dollars away from capital. Virginia solved that problem. I've been pushing the county and pushing the state legislature to give the county authority to set up a tax structure similar to what Virginia has, so we could actually build the things we need here, whether it's schools or whether it's transportation. But we're going to need to make some changes because this situation is not going to get better. So that's sort of my overview of where we are. I think there's a lot of possibilities, but, we really are worried about what happens with this budget. The state's in trouble. When Governor Moore came in, he immediately found that they had made a mistake in the calculation of the budget. There was like $1 billion that they were wrong by. He was supposed to have an $8 billion transportation fund that turned out not to be there. So a lot of the things he thought he was going to be able to do kind of vanished within the first year when they realized the money for the stuff wasn't actually in the budget. I don't know what Hogan was smoking, but it was definitely something that gave him a misplaced sense of how much resources they had. The state's going to continue to struggle because the president is targeting Maryland, because Maryland's A, next door, and B, Maryland's been pretty outspoken. Montgomery County is getting its fair targeting. We stand to lose a substantial number of federal workers. We have over 55,000 federal workers here. We stand to lose 10 to 20,000 workers if Trump does everything he says he's going to do. That's going to have a major impact on county income taxes, which will have a major impact on county revenues, and it's going to displace people from homes. And you add that to what Trump will do with immigration, and the picture is not really pretty. And so, like the governor, we're trying to figure out how we balance all these things. The state's not in the position to bail us out, and we're not surprised, and we're not in a position to bail out the state. So we're going to be in an interesting situation. The only hope is that a few of the Republicans get sensible about this and they stop this war on the federal government. The idea they're going to destroy NIH is absolutely insane. People all around the world talk about NIH. When I go on economic development trips and talk to companies about coming to Montgomery County, everybody knows NIH. People from all over the world have worked in NIH. They've got experiences there. And when you say, and they see the news about Trump going after NIH, there's nobody else in the world who understands why you would dismantle the leading institution in the country. But that's what he seems to be intent on doing. So all of us are going to have to probably grab onto our seats and see what the next year brings us and hope for the best. But I'm thinking, like I said, we're preparing a budget that would allow for some growth. We're preparing a budget that might reflect declining revenues, and within all that, we'll have to make choices on where we spend the money. My inclination is to lean toward education and social services like we've been doing. We'll probably need to do more of that than we've done before rather than less of that. But that's how we see what's going to come in front of us. So having said that, I guess we'll take some questions.
So we have a good size crowd here tonight. So in order to be fair to everyone, to make sure we get to everyone's question, first come, first serve, I'm going to ask people to form a line right here off to the side. And as you get ready to ask your question, again, we do have a lot of people here, so we want to make sure that we have time to get to everyone's question. We ask that you keep it to about a minute. If it seems to run a little long, that's okay, but if it runs too long, I'm just going to give you a little friendly reminder because we do have a long line of people. And we want to make sure that we get to everyone's question. We don't want to have anyone leave tonight with not having a chance to get their question asked. Okay, step right
Good evening. So here's my question, Mark. I'm very concerned, and you mentioned it in your discussion about displacement, gentrification, and the operation of our county's planning board. I also understand, and maybe everybody doesn't know, but the county executive really has no control over the planning board. Very disturbing. So, because you have no control over the planning board, I hope that you're thinking about funding an office of People's Counsel so that people can have somewhere to go to get information and ask questions as we are, because at this point, you know, we're all just subject to whatever opinion gets expressed in whatever paper there may be. You know, that's not going to work. And as people get displaced from their homes, as we're getting gentrified, you know, I want to make sure that Montgomery County does not repeat its really shady history of undermining and displacing black communities in the name of progress. So I'm asking you to put the People's Counsel in your budget.
So I have put the People's Counsel in my budget every single year, and every year the council takes it out because they don't want residents to be able to get advice on zoning and to help them understand what they're being subjected to. And that's the way it's been. So I will ask you all again, come down and testify. I'm going to put it back in the budget again. I'm sure they're tired of seeing it. They think I should just give up. But I think I'm going to keep putting it in there every single year because I think you need a People's Counsel to help the residents of this county. And this county is the only county where the executive has no power over the planning board. None. Even with Prince George's County, we both are a bi-county commission. Prince George's County executive appoints the planning board chair with approval of the council and nominates planning board members. I do not get to nominate planning board members, and I do not get to nominate the chair. So this thing has been set up to keep the executive out and to put the power in the hands of the council, which more often than not over the years has led to the power in the hands of people who support the developers primarily. Not all of them. Kristen is definitely an exception to that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Just a little thank you. Good evening, and thank you so much for being here. It's not really a question, more of just comment and sharing my story. I'm speaking as a parent on the behalf of early care and education. And I have two daughters who are both in child care, and finding high quality, affordable child care has just been really hard. And to share more context, I was actually laid off last February after having my second child. And when reaching out to the government for assistance, basically didn't qualify because both parents weren't working. And you may be thinking like, well, you could just stay at home and take care of the children. It's like, yeah, that's a fact, but why should one of my daughters get the opportunity to go to school and my other cannot because we can't afford it? And so we were actually really thankful and blessed to get the EquiCare grant at my children's school, but my second daughter, she's counting to 20 and less than 20, and I can't think about where she would be socially, emotionally, cognitively without having the opportunity to go to school. And we're very blessed to get the EquiCare grant, but I know so many other families don't qualify for their subsidy programs. And so just wanting to put this on people's minds that early care and education is really important, and that it's something that I hope we can come together as a community and really step up and say, this is what our children need. Thank you.
Thank you for raising that, because you're absolutely right. And one of the things, we're dealing with the blueprint, which is extraordinarily expensive. If I had my druthers, because we're not able to pay for the blueprint, nobody's confused about that. The state's no ability to pay for it. If I was going to do anything, I would start by universalizing childcare, because that is the one thing of all the stuff in the blueprint, it is the only thing that actually changes outcomes in the long run. Everything else starts when the kids are too old. You know, there was a Harvard study. I made my staff read this when I first got elected to the council, which is like 19 years ago. And the study said that if you invest $1 in a 1 or 2-year-old, the return is 8 to 1. If you invest in $1 in an 8-year-old, there is no return. And because if you enter school, and we say this in Montgomery County, so many of our kids enter at the 3-year-old level in kindergarten. We all know the difference between a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. Your cognitive ability, your ability to make sense out of the world is totally different. So if you enter at too low a level, you do not leave kindergarten at grade level. If you do not leave at grade level, you tend not to catch up. And for years when I was a teacher, they would say, well, we know by 3rd grade what these kids are going to do. And yet all the funding for programs in the school system were for kids not in 3rd grade. They're older kids. And it's like we've got to make a concerted effort, decision, that if we're going to only fund one thing for a while, that we put the money into early childhood so we don't create another generation of kids who start out behind. So you could help, by talking to legislators and people at the state level about if you've got limited resources, target the thing that makes the most difference. Thank you.
You hold the mic? Okay. Good evening. Early childhood education, let's talk about it.
I didn't set you up for this, did I?
No,
Okay.
not at all, but that's okay. Here we are. It is not charity work. It's essential, right? Early childhood education. And the preschool expansion through MSDE is changing the landscape. Community-based providers need help to be included so that they don't go out of business. If they still have empty pre-K seats, how can the county partners help fill these seats, which have been currently funded but empty? What can we do about that, sir?
I think, part of the empty part is parents still struggle to pay. You can provide the seats. We need to expand the programs, which is why we've got this one program that lowered the age level, but it doesn't nearly have the resources to serve everybody who needs it. And there are a lot of families who won't qualify economically, which doesn't mean they can afford to pay, which is a bit ironic. So we'll continue to look at what we can do to increase funding for that, but it's really important. We also have funding for people who are starting daycare centers to invest in the daycare centers so they can afford the cost of equipment and meeting the state's regulations. But I know the work you do, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Hi, County Executive Elrich. My name is Wylea Chase. I am a candidate for an at-large seat on the Board of Education. I'm also a proud member of the African American Advisory Group. And I have a question, so get ready for it, about funding a full-time African American community liaison. But before that, I want to say that while I appreciate your presentation and the work that went into it, it would be great to have, especially the community leaders here, provided those slides. But it would be great before having those slides to have them disaggregated by race, right? And so I understand that, you talked about the workforce and, all of the money and all of other things, and that's great. But again, having that disaggregated by social economic levels and race, because we know that if it doesn't say Black next to it, then it's not for Black. Right? And so you talked about the fact that things are expensive, and they absolutely are, but we should also talk about the high cost and high expense of underfunding and not funding initiatives that positively impact Black folks who are 22% of this county. So I just wanted to say that. So my question is, again, around the full-time African American community liaison. We ask that you fund the African American community liaison as a full-time position at a market competitive salary. This establishes the full-time dedicated advocate within Montgomery County government who can respond to residential concerns, coordinate across departments, and assure that African American voices and issues are integrated into county decision making. We know, council member, Freudian slip, County Executive Elrich, that this will cost 0.002% of the total county operating budget. The cost of not doing that, again, is significant. This gives you, in your current administration, an opportunity to align with the county's stated Race Equity and Social Justice Act and community trust initiatives. We're really tired of being pushed off and pushed to the side.
So you're not the only one that's part-time, but we're working to
And
We're
I just want to
working-
interrupt you there. I know that we're not the only ones that part-time, but we're not talking about comparing to other groups, so we'd really like you to talk
So I
about
was saying, we
full-time
are
African
trying to
American
make a
community
mid-year,
liaison.
we're trying to make a mid-year change.
Okay.
And so we've been talking to Frederick about what we can do to get this thing done midway through this year.
Okay,
Which
so
would
is that
then
talk going to lead to action?
Which, yeah, that's, we are trying to figure out how we pay for this right now.
Nothing
And
beats a
then it
failure
goes
but a
in-
try.
But then it goes into the budget next year for the full year.
So it's going to happen.
Yeah,
And you're going to be able to say that you were able to do that.
I will be able to say that. That assumes the council passes it, which I think they will do. Kristen will help.
We'll see. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Marcia Coleman Adebayo. I'm with the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition, and we have been fighting for 10 years to stop the desecration of the historic Moses African Cemetery in Bethesda, Maryland, on River Road. You may have heard the pastor talk about the fact that this church is 150 years old. Well, Macedonia Baptist Church was a mission of Mount Calvary Baptist Church. We came out of this church. And a lot of the people who lie underneath the cemetery in River Road came from this community, married into the River Road community. So we are one community. And this did not happen under the Republicans. This didn't happen under, some kind of, conspiratorial situation. This desecration happened under your administration, Mr. Elrich. And for 10 years, we have been fighting to stop this horrific desecration. Thousands of bones were found in Moses African Cemetery. These were people who were enslaved in this area, particularly children. They were children who were kidnapped from their homes, brought to River Road, forced to provide labor for the tobacco industry. Most of them died before the age of 12. And when they died, their bodies were thrown in a cemetery called Moses African Cemetery. When they found the bones, they were scattered all over this area that we now consider the cemetery, and some of them were basically chopped up and basically made into fertilizer, quite frankly, for the area. We've been trying to stop this horrific desecration because we are the only community that would have even allowed this kind of desecration in our community. There is no other community in the world that would allow the kind of disrespect we have been treated to in our community. In fact, when this first happened, they asked one of the developers, who are the people who are being desecrated? And as you know, 1784 said, oh, these are just rats and chickens and pigs. That's what our ancestors were called. And when someone asked you, a reporter, who are these people? You said they're not human. They're not really people. But guess what, everybody? Our ancestors showed up. There was a DNA test, and you know we showed up. There was DNA found in the cemetery. Those little girls showed up. We're asking you, Mr. Elrich, will you show up? Will you stop the desecration of Moses African Cemetery while you still have the power to do so?
Actually, first place, I don't have the power to do so. It is, Marcia, you and I have a serious, and this isn't just me, your own report that you paid for said that Moses African Cemetery is underneath the driveway next to the what is now the HSC building.
Did you read the report, Mark?
I read two reports on this. That is not where the cemetery.
But then you didn't read the total report.
The cemetery is not where you say it is, Marcia.
It's not
underneath.
true, Mark. It's not true. You did not read the report.
Marcia, you picked two mediators, and I tried to put together parking planning and HSC to try to resolve this. You fired both of the mediators.
No, we didn't have the power to fire anyone, Mark. Even you don't have the power to fire them. How do you think we have the power to fire them?
Because they were
All
your
right.
mediators.
Mark, wait, but I've got to say this, Mark. When you and I have had this discussion before in front of predominantly white audiences, you always take the opportunity to call me a liar, which is what you're trying to do today. I want to know in front of a predominantly black audience, are you going to do the same thing?
You are not telling
I'm
the truth
asking
about.
you-
You're
I'm
not
asking
telling the
you,
truth
Mark.
about where
I'm
Moses
asking you,
Cemetery
Mark.
is.
Okay, hold on one second, everyone.
No, to stop, Mark.
Hold on.
No, Fred. Frederick, no, we're having a conversation.
This is-
I want you to do the right thing, Mark. You've got a little bit more time on your term.
Marcia,
Do
I said
the
I
right
would.
thing,
I
Mark.
said I would work again to memorialize the cemetery where it is, where it was moved from these. Just so you all know, it was moved out of the District of Columbia around 1912. It was placed on lots 175 and 177, which are next to the HOC building, and that's where the Moses Cemetery was. It was owned by a benevolent association, and for reasons that none of us know, the benevolent association sold it to a developer who desecrated the site. That is absolutely true. They did not relocate the bones. They may have pushed them up against the road. They may have carted them off and dumped them somewhere, but that's where the cemetery was. And you all can go you can find the fact book, you can read the reports. That's where the cemetery is, and if you guys would like, I'll even make the reports available to you.
Thank you.
But this isn't my research.
Let me just make one other comment. When you talk about the developers forcing the people off the land, I just want you to know that that was the KKK. And they don't want to talk about the level of violence towards the black community. That was the KKK that forced our people off. They didn't walk away from their land. They didn't give it away. They were forced to move. And this kind of whitewashing of history just cannot continue. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for hosting this community conversation, County Executive Elrich. My name is Tiffany Jones, and I'm an early childhood educator and also the chairperson of the Children's Opportunity Alliance. And I and many other people who do the early childhood work like I do are proximity experts, and we need to be involved in the decision-making process around the changes to the ECE system. So my question is, what is Montgomery County doing to support pre-K expansion in family child care programs? Because we need to do more than what we're currently doing.
So we've continued to provide funding for those programs and for the expansion of the programs. And if the budget allows it this year, we'll add another tranche to expansion. We're also working with the school system, which is they're going to be opening a major child care center, for example, in Burtonsville at the site of a former elementary school. And that'll come out, the county funding will go to making that happen. So we're going to continue to expand it as much as we can expand it.
So I'm asking in particular about family child care, which is not center-based care and not school-based care. So when we're thinking about expansion, we want to make sure that we're not leaving out small businesses that are family child care programs.
Well, they're eligible for money, but we have training programs so that people can get certified, because whether you're center-based or family-based, you have to have certified staff on hand. So we're also supporting training so people can get the training they need. And we're going to keep doing that.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark. How you doing? Richard Allen, and pleasure to be here today at Mount Calvary Baptist Church, the home of the NAACP as well, I want to say. I'm a member of the Committee Against Hate Violence in the county, of the Human Rights Commission, and also precinct work in the Democratic Party and some other things of that nature. I just want to reiterate what the young lady had said earlier. And you did answer her, but just to reiterate again, it's vitally important that the African-American liaison position be made a full-time paid position. That's all I had to say. She did such a great job. I can't say any better what you did. But just I second that emotion.
And I'd give you the same answer.
Okay.
We will.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone, and I hope you all had a good day. My name is Ibrahim. Use he, him pronouns. I'm organizer with Housing Justice Montgomery. Today, I want to thank you first about this presentation and about talking about affordable housing and the housing crisis in Montgomery County. I'm the one who's been facing eviction, but I didn't get evicted. And just to talk about the feeling through the eviction, it's another story. It's about like how you lose your sleep, how you be under stress, and how you don't know how to continue your day and your family, where we're going to be in the next week. So really, we need in this county more about eviction prevention programs. Will you commit to fund $50 million at least for emergency rental assistance in this budget?
I could not put $50 million in there. I don't have it. I'll be struggling to fund the same services that we funded this year. $50 million would mean if I did nothing else, I'd have to raise taxes 2.5 cents to get $50 million. So I couldn't promise that. I know it's easy, I could easily say, yeah, sure, I'll do it, but I know I can't do it.
But
I will get whatever I can in there so we can do more eviction prevention.
But it's really going to be so helpful for me and my community to stay in their homes with really stabilized without living in this stress and this life condition, the horrible life condition. So I would love for you to consider and would love to follow up meeting, get a follow-up meeting with you as a Housing Justice Montgomery organizer, if you want to do that.
I'll talk to you guys. I mean, I can't invent money. That's not in my magic powers.
I feel we're going to keep pushing more. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Tracy Clay, and I sit on many boards, but I want to let you know to whom you're speaking to. I've been in the field of early childhood now for almost 49 years. So I can identify with your story about being a teacher. I can also understand your identification with the Head Start, but I'm here to speak to you on behalf of the workforce that serves our earliest learners of early childhood. And thank you for at least addressing, which I think is also a concern, that I'm aware of the blueprint. So to hear tonight that even that is on shaky ground has me very concerned, not only for our children in the community, but for the workforce that serves them. So you might be aware of that Montgomery County just did their work study, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at it, or you will. But let me just tell you a little bit about this workforce. This workforce right now, their earnings are self-sufficient thresholds are 92% less than Montgomery County Public School entry-level teacher salary. The early child educators, only 28% of the employer provide health care to minority, brown, and black women who mainly serve these children. 16% have no health insurance at all. So I'm very concerned about not only the fact that you have funding for the early childhood, but we also need to dive a little deeper into the workforce. There are many programs out there, but I need to know, what are you going to do? And FYI, also, I know on your operation budget that the building for the schools to help the pre-K expansion, you're going to build more schools to help those spaces, but yet you have the infrastructure for Tiffany Jones, who just spoke about the family daycare workers. In the mixed delivery, you should incorporate an infrastructure that's already there that could save you money on the operating budget by using more family daycare providers to expand the pre-K expansion. How will you address these concerns?
I've actually had conversations with the schools about not gobbling up all the students into school spaces, particularly because they don't take infants. And if infants are not taken into the school program, then it leaves daycare providers with the infant population, which has very low student-teacher ratios, right? But there's a 2 or 3 to 1 kid, and makes it impossible for anybody to afford, infant care. So I'm well aware that we've got to do something about making sure that spaces outside of the schools are built and available, and that the blueprint at some point requires that the wages become comparable to teachers' wages, and which is kind of what DC did. I just wish I had DC's $22 million budget, which would make this a little bit easier. But we're going to continue to try to increase the amount of money that goes there.
Well, I'm going to ask that first that you make no more cuts, but then also that you look at the fact that if you're going to build more buildings, which costs more than already having the infrastructure of family daycare, and also that if you do that and you're going to focus on infants and toddlers, then you're going to actually affect the workforce of the child care centers, where we know we don't make money with the infant toddler care, where we make our monies in preschool, school age programs, and before and after. So you're literally wiping out 2 industries that support early childhood, which we know is the workforce supporting the workforce that's in Montgomery County. You know this for a fact because you acknowledged us during COVID. when all the other industries were being acknowledged, you sat there and acknowledged that early childhood was an essential workforce to keep the economy going. So I'm going to ask you again to relook at the operation budget and not do all these new schools, but then to look it back into the mixed delivery of family daycares, as well as talking about the EquiCare grant, which is your infant toddler, which is a great program. But the expansion and the blueprint is where I think you need to focus your attention to.
But
Can you look at that?
we're not building schools for daycare. This is not where
I'm not talking about for daycare. What I'm talking about is to accommodate for the pre-K expansion. Okay, and I'm
Right.
saying you're spending more money to build more schools when you have an infrastructure of mixed delivery of family daycare providers and centers. If we work more with them to accommodate infrastructure that's already there that can support the pre-K expansion in the blueprint. Just look at it. The numbers don't match.
I think you're wrong about the school spending, but I'll look at it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Gibson. I'm with Housing Justice Montgomery. I'm also a resident at the Neville Street Emergency Men's Shelter, so I want to thank you for your work with the vision and bringing that into fruition. At Neville Street, there are a lot of people, mostly black residents, older black residents who have physical disabilities and who suffer with severe and persistent symptoms of mental health disorders. These are individuals who really need permanent supportive housing. That's what my question is about. We know that people in these types of situations use emergency services, shelters, hospitals, jails, just to kind of stay alive and get by. And we know that permanent supportive housing is a proven investment to stabilize people, and where they even become kind of pillars of moral and material support in the communities where they live. So will you support expanding funding for permanent supportive housing in 27?
We've been expanding, and we're going to continue to try to expand it. I mean, I think you were at the rally. I thought I recognized you from someplace. Because this funding's at risk from the federal government. It would wipe our programs out if they make the cuts they're talking about making. So, I mean, I'm hoping I don't have to try to fill that hole just to keep things stable. I hope that they can be convinced to provide funding and our money can go to expand the program. You're right, it works. And it prevents permanent homelessness for a lot of people. And a lot of people need a period of time where they can stabilize their lives and stabilize their incomes. It's important that we do this. So, we will continue to try to keep that program expanding and growing. We're actually looking at some innovative housing solutions that would bring down the cost per unit. I know last year they, took money out of one of our programs. It was the motel program, and found that we could get bigger bang for the buck through the SHARP program. So we shifted funding towards SHARP, which got more people into housing. We're going to continue to look to things like that we can do.
Also, I wanted to ask if you would commit to reopening SHARP for individuals.
I can talk to the homelessness director about that.
Christine Hunt, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Good evening, County Exec Elridge. My name is Donna Cawley. I am a Montgomery County resident. And my question goes back to affordable housing. A couple of points have already been made, and you actually brought up the one about displacement. I've spent 30 years in mortgage financing and worked very closely in some major metropolitan areas when it came to affordable housing. And the concern I have, and you touched upon it, is displacement and this concentration of low-income poverty. So I have a two-part question. The first part is, while you may not have control around the People's Council and that being implemented or funded, but what thoughts or ideas do you have about ensuring that HLC is properly funded so they can continue to support programming that will preserve existing affordable housing units and protect Black residents from being displaced, especially near the transit line? So that's the first part of my question.
So I think HSC is pretty well funded. They don't get, a lot of their money from Montgomery County anyway. They do get some money from Montgomery County. I will say some of our nonprofits do a better job of providing affordable housing than HSC does, just to be blunt. Some of the affordable housing HSC does projects where 30% of the units are affordable and 70% are market. I have nonprofit developers who are now producing units, developments for almost every unit is affordable. So I've not been shy about, trying to grow the number of nonprofits who want to work in the county, because if they're willing to have greater levels of affordability, that makes better use of our money at a time when money is pretty scarce. But regardless of whether money goes to HSA or somebody else, we're going to continue to fund this. And, we're working with the state to move toward allowing us to do more modular housing. The state's now beginning to look at regulations that would allow modular housing. There's modular housing now that's built to the same standard as non-modular housing, and the cost of modular housing. Some of the units we've looked at are significantly less expensive than what we're forced to build. And so we're trying to figure out, if we can get state support for this, we would be much more aggressive, because our dollars would go a lot farther in producing some developments with modular units. And we've talked to a company that can get us 1,600 square foot townhouses, 3 and 4 bedrooms at decent prices that most people could probably afford. So we're trying to, if we wait for the developers to do this, we will wait a very long time. And price, as you know, is the killer in this. The price of construction, even if, as much as I would like developers to give us more stuff out of the high rises, if it costs $800 a square foot to build something, you're not going to get a whole lot of affordability. So trying to find housing units that we can build affordably is a real priority. And we're going to try to make some major steps in the next 10 months.
Okay, and the second half of my question, thank you for that response, is when you talk about or think about disparate treatment, because a lot of this affordable housing, in terms of where it's being targeted, certain zip codes, my backpack, the other half of my question really is, what are the guardrails that are going to be put in place, or the ResJack data points, like how do you get that overlay to ensure that African Americans in this county are not disproportionately impacted by this proposed affordable housing, particularly in some zip codes, because not all zip codes are going to be experiencing this?
Well, most of the land is private land, so we don't control where our nonprofit partners build. But a lot of the projects that are being undertaken, some are in the urban center, some are along between Rockville and Bethesda, and that seems to be a major corridor for this. There's an opportunity to do things in Wheaton, I believe. I think the county's going to discover that zoning everything for high-rise in Wheaton is going to result in nothing being built, which is pretty much what's happened in Wheaton, and we're going to need to be more realistic about our zoning. I can talk to you about a couple of developers who actually asked me for help because they were zoned for high-rises. They said there's no market for high-rises, and so they weren't building their projects, and they went to Park and Planning and wanted permission to build a lower building that would have lower costs per square foot and could serve a wider range of incomes. And Park and Planning originally, the staff didn't want to give them permission to build a smaller building. So they would rather apparently have no building than to have a smaller building. We were able to get them to allow the developer to go forward with a smaller project, and the county is going to wind up with about half those units as affordable, and it's in a prime location like Pike and Rose. So there's opportunities for us to play, and where we can play, I think we'll do more stuff. And where the county buys property, when we get the opportunity, we're able to have more control over the prices and where it is.
All right, thank you. I guess my only ask then would be to consider putting into place some type of overlay, because we need to see more data so we can ensure that our community is not being disproportionately impacted and displaced. And that data is very, very important. And I've gone onto the website before and looking at data, and it's very hard to mine it by zip code, by demographic. So I think if that should be a priority.
I will tell you, we raised this issue on the Thrive Master Plan and on the University Boulevard Corridor Plan. We've actually looked at who lived along University Boulevard and pointed out to the council that you're likely to adversely impact the heavily minority community, to which the planning director's response was, they'll find housing somewhere else. And I'm like, in this market, it's like, good luck.
So good evening. My name is Makita Richardson. I'm chair of the board for Montgomery County Pride Family, Montgomery County Pride Center. And so, Mark, we want to thank you, first of all, for your continued support of the Montgomery County Pride Family and MoCo Pride Center, and for recognizing the importance of county partnerships that serve our most vulnerable residents. As we look ahead at FY27, we hope to deepen that partnership by expanding our capacity to meet the growing needs of our community, specifically through an additional $250,000 for care navigators and $50,000 for enhanced outreach and services. These investments would significantly strengthen access for the LGBTQIA+ residents, particularly those with intersecting identities who continue to face systemic barriers to care. So we would greatly appreciate your guidance and recommendations on how we can work together to ensure that funding for the Pride family is fully integrated into the county's base budget so that we're not dependent on supplemental allocations each year to sustain these essential and life-saving programs.
I think that the nature of what happened had to do with the creation of the center, which did require supplemental and did require getting done. But once the center's created, we anticipate that's going to become part of the normal budget. Expanding budgets, this is going to be under the same limitations as everything else I've been talking about tonight. If we do okay fiscally, if we have the revenues we need, we'll do more. My fear is we wind up doing less because we have less revenue. But, last year I took a chance and I submitted a budget that did not have cuts, and we managed to get through most of the year without needing them. So hopefully we'll be able to do the same thing next year.
So we will be, can you commit to us to fully integrate it so that we don't have to go back to supplemental?
Yeah, I don't want to do supplemental. Plus, you can't fund ongoing operations with supplementals.
Right, exactly.
Because no one's going to work for you if they don't know they're going to get paid.
Exactly.
I get it.
All right. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Great evening. I'm going to give you a heads up right now about my voice. It's very strained. I'm Kelly Dominique Hudson. I'm the parent of 2 daughters in the county. I'm also a proud member of the African American Advisory Group. I'm here advocating on behalf of Black maternal health equity and for the African American Health Program and BPHN, the Black Physicians and Healthcare Network, more specifically a shift from the year-to-year budget cycle to a 3-year budget cycle. Now imagine, if you will, that it's 7 a.m. in the morning in East County and a postpartum mom, let's call her Keisha, is waiting for the bus. She's on her way to work. She was recently reprimanded and lost pay for missed days due to a hospitalization from a miscarriage due to preeclampsia and elevated blood pressure. She has no health insurance or any idea of how to pay for it. The 2025 Office of Legislative Oversight, Racial Disparities and Maternal Health Outcomes Report covers barriers like these, barriers like Lakeisha's, in great detail, as well as statistics that tell part of the stories of Black mothers and families in Montgomery County who face systemic barriers to respectful, continuous, culturally appropriate care, compounded by medical mistrust, fragmented services, and the absence of community-rooted pathways. The State of Black Health in Montgomery County, a report published by the Black Physicians and Healthcare Network, also echo these realities across maternal risk and chronic disease. What has been reported to work are programs made possible by the African American Health Program and the Black Physicians and Healthcare Network that provide racially concordant care and options to choose racially concordant providers of the same racial and ethnic background. They coordinate telehealth appointments that reduce no-shows and community health workers recruited from our own neighborhoods, as well as place-based education and outreach so Black families can get help where they are. While we are grateful for the millions of dollars in budget allocations to the African American Health Program and the Black Physicians in Healthcare Network, the fiscal year 27 budget ask is to shift again from year to year to 2 to 3 year budget cycles. Year-to-year budget cycles leave these organizations fighting for their lives to plan programming sustainably. Year-to-year budgets also leave organizations trapped, and it impacts not only these organizations, but their partners and contractors they connect with for continuity of care. The second part of the ask is to clarify the scope of work for both the AAHP and the BPHN organizations to avoid duplication of services, from AAHP's health programs to BPHN's mobilization of Black clinicians. A commitment to a 2 or 3 year budget and scope clarification would drive sustainable and strategic programming and measurable reductions in Black maternal and infant health disparities across the county. Thank you.
So I can't, we don't do 3 year budgets. And so, because no, you can't commit a future council to an expenditure, and you can't put away 3 years of money in the first year, which is why people come back for grants, or if you get into the base budget, it's still subject to whatever the appropriation is in the year we do the budget. So you could be part of the regular system, being within a base budget, but it's still subject to annual appropriation. So I can't, I just can't say you get guaranteed 3 year funding at a certain level.
So the only answer is year-to-year budgeting?
It's the way we do it. If you're in the base, and some of these groups know they're there every year, and they come back every year, and they tell us what they need, and we make adjustments accordingly. We're trying to avoid putting people in a situation where they build up, and then all of a sudden they've got to let people go. So we try to keep things stable and growing, if anything.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to have the conversations that are so important to our community. I'm here as a part of the African American Advisory Group, and one of our concerns we brought up last year around supports for children who are turning 6 that are transitioning out of early care and education and need vital out-of-school time from the ages 6 to 24. And when we talk about 24, we're really talking about workforce development. Last year, we approached our office with an ask for $3 million to be allocated to expand resources specifically for Black youth. And when you showed the special populations, I didn't see young people. And I would offer that our young people, specifically Black youth, are definitely a special population that have not been invested in at the levels that they're transitioning out of our early care system. So what we'd like to see is a commitment to a base budget allocation for the new out-of-school time system, which I have to thank our county council for their commitment and continuing to push for infrastructure to keep those resources and programs on the conversation, but now the conversation needs to be funded. We have providers that have seats. They're in our communities, they're a part of our communities, they represent our communities and reflect our values, and they also are interested in our children's academic achievement that can partner with our schools. So a strong investment of $2 to $3 million serves thousands. I heard you say that the investment in early child care reaps benefits, but if you invest in an 8-year-old, the return is nothing. I have an 8-year-old here, and that hurt me to hear that. And the research just came out for America after 3 p.m. The return is 3 to 1. There's a 26-year longitudinal study that says that young people thrive because of out-of-school time programs. And as a former educator myself and a leader of out-of-school time programs, I've seen it grow our communities. So we really want to double down on the investment in young people across their lifespans, a continuum of supports. So will you commit to $2 to $3 million? And you can pick the program, because it could be AAHP. I know that HHS is considering expanding programs for young people that are school age and young adults as well. Our workforce development programs in WorkSource Montgomery are also viable, and there are funding sources. We have our community reinvestment dollars. We have the educational trust fund at the state that just needs some advocacy to open up OST as an acceptable use. It's just worth a conversation that hasn't been had consistently and funded consistently.
We can have a conversation, particularly if you know where there's money. That's a helpful conversation. If you think there's money at the state level that we're missing, we certainly should figure out if we can get to that money. We put more money into WorkSource Montgomery. We fund after-school programs. We've extended the after-school programs. If we have the ability to do it, we'll do it again.
Yeah, and it's quite important. This summer, we saw almost the loss of the 21st century programs, which MCP has just expanded. So thousands of seats were about to leave because we don't have a local or state level funding source. So it's really important that we have the local conversation about our young people, because if we're talking about safety, our young people don't feel like they belong. They don't feel safe. And the part of belonging that we're missing is that they need place. We need more places for them. And so as much as we want to expand family childcare, I would say we expand community-based out-of-school time as well. And we can do that through our Office of Grants Management, making sure that there's no monopoly on how young people can be served. But that investment is necessary.
Do you have an umbrella organization, or are you?
Yours. We have a Montgomery County out-of-school time system, which is commissioned by our county council, and a strategic plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Abraham Georgia. I'm a local Montgomery County resident. I came to you today. I just wanted to, well, first, thank you for your time. I wanted to speak on, I guess, an economic matter, more or less. From your presentation earlier, if I'm not mistaken, you said it was like a rough estimate of like 15,000 people that are subject to leave based on the federal government's potential cuts, which kind of creates like a massive crater in your upcoming operating budget. I think the challenge and the concern that I may have is, that us as, African American community, we're kind of overly indexed when it comes to the federal government, as far as it being, one of the few places in the economic sphere of things where we actually have like a somewhat equal footing. My thinking is, or not really my thinking, but my question to you is, what are some of the programs or initiatives and the challenges? Well, not really the challenges. I see the challenge, but what are some of the initiatives that you're thinking about implementing and financing through the budget to help those federal government workers who may get displaced or who are getting left behind by this federal government transition into new roles, if I may ask?
So we actually have more than one program going right now. WorkSource Montgomery has expanded their programs and is working with former federal employees to help them get placed. The school system, thanks to Governor Moore and the local school system, is letting people go directly into teaching from the federal government, which didn't used to be the case. You normally would have to go get certified, and that's like 40 to 50 credits of additional work. So the opportunities, there's opportunities opening up. We've got training. We've got people working with, helping people write resumes so they can apply for new jobs. We've got a contract with a nonprofit that's also working with federal employees to help them locate jobs, help them with their resumes, figure out how they cast themselves to be appealing to somebody who's not in the field they were previously working in. So we're actively doing this and actively putting money in it.
Let me ask you one more thing, I guess. Is there like an initiative for like companies that are local to like assist with the transition?
That's part of this. They have partnerships with companies who are willing to work with them and locate, help people make a transition. We know a number of scientists were able to transition out of NIH into private sector companies in Montgomery County. So we're trying to figure out all the angles on this.
Excellent. So I'm guessing that it'll be more to roll out in the not too distant future.
If you can go to the county website and you're going to give them the information where?
Appreciate that. And one last thing, one last question. Like last week, there was like a massive like swamping of like basically the far right based off of the affordability issue that's going on in the country. Does your company have, well, not does your company, does the county and the council and your office have any like initiatives to assist with like, just affordability in general?
Affordability in terms of,
I guess one of the main things that was, I guess, driving people a little up the wall was more so like groceries, electricity bills, more so like housing and stuff along those lines.
the utilities have some utility bill assistance, but obviously limited to income eligibility. The county has had rent assistance to help people stay in their houses. We don't have unlimited rent assistance, but we've had rent assistance. So there are ways to get assistance, but it's very limited.
I got you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark. As you know, we go back to the 80s when you joined the Rainbow Coalition here in Montgomery County when I was chair. My question for you is this. The HOC, the Housing Opportunity Commission, has responsibility over in Bethesda at a building that was built over a graveyard. You all tried to sell the building.
We all did not.
Well, the HOC, which your government, the county, tried to sell the building. We went to court. On a circuit level, we won. You all spent more money to appeal it to the Court of Appeals. And then we ended up appealing it to the Supreme Court of Maryland, and we won again. But yet, when we come back to the Supreme Court, sent it back to the Circuit Court to make a decision, HOC lawyer again, which happened to have the name of Frederick Douglass, argued again against any type of settlement, real settlement about it. So my question to you, given the fact that you are the county executive, why are you spending county funds to hire a lawyer to play this game of trying to prevent the county from doing the right thing in dealing with that particular piece of property? And I think you're very familiar with what I'm talking about.
I'm very familiar. First place, it's not a county agency. And this
Say
is
that
not
again?
county. It's not a county agency. It is not county money they're spending on this. If I'd had my way, because you weren't in the meetings, but you know about them, I had to get them into a room with Park and Planning to talk about how to resolve this problem. I couldn't force them to resolve anything. I had to get them to agree, along with Park and Planning, about how best to handle the lots, the two pieces of the lots that are next to their building. So this is not my money. If it was up to me, I would have said, don't do it. I asked them not to do it. I asked them to, to work out an agreement not to develop the parking lot, which is the concern I know the community has, that if HOC sells the building with the parking lot with no conditions on what could happen on the parking lot, they might well redevelop the parking lot knowing full well there's possibly bones of ancestors underneath it. That's what I would have done. I don't have the power to do it. This is why I've proposed a way of trying to move this forward that would involve, if we can get this moving, the county council and myself saying who makes decisions about Park and Planning's property, which has also been resistant. When Marcia was in the meetings with Park and Planning, and the Park and Planning's view was, we're the ones that are experts in this, and we're not going to listen to anybody. So I'm in favor of changing this dynamic, but I don't control HOC.
My point is, I want to be clear here. You're saying, and in the budget you just got to describing, that the county puts no money into HOC?
We put some money into HOC. We give them bonds for building affordable housing. HOC gets more money outside of the county than they get from us. They're not a county agency.
All right, even though it has the name of Montgomery County.
Well, it says Housing Opportunities Commission. So, like I said, they're not using our money to do what you think they're doing. I don't agree with what they're doing. I don't ever remember having you state that you disagree
with what they're doing and making it public that you disagree with what they're doing at
Neil,
all.
I was in meetings, like I said, with Marcia, with those people, and saying what we wanted done, which is the memorialization of the driveway and the back parking lot that was part of the cemetery. It goes all the way back to the creek. We wanted that memorialized, and we were trying to get Park and Planning to agree to memorialization on their part and to let the community decide how to memorialize it, not let Park and Planning decide how to memorialize it, and to figure out what we could do on the driveway, because there was no way, you can't take the driveway away. So you have to figure out what you can do on the spaces in the driveway that have the opportunity for some kind of memorialization. And I'm still willing to do that.
But they're now saying that their proposal is, in fact, to make it a dog park where pets can come in and defecate on that piece of property.
I am so opposed to that.
But I don't ever hear you publicly stating that at all.
I haven't heard them say they're talking about a dog park. I seriously, I haven't. They've talked about some kind of facility, a walking area along the creek there.
For the pets.
And my view is people shouldn't be walking over the graves, that it needs to be set aside. If they're going to do a walking path, it should be on the other side.
So then are you willing to make a public statement?
I'm more than happy to say that.
Your position as county executive, that this piece of property that has been a graveyard, and that even the Supreme Court agrees was a graveyard of African Americans, that in fact you make a public statement.
I said this, Paul, I said this.
The HOC should not even consider the idea of making it a animal facility for people to bring their animals over there and probably desecrate the area by defecating.
So the part that you're talking about is not HOC. The part you're talking about is owned by Park and Planning. That lot got split. Part of the lot stayed with HOC. The other part of the lot, Park and Planning took on to put a park there. I am more than happy to be really clear that that park should be a memorial space, not a place for dogs and not a place for people to do recreational bike riding, skating, or walking. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Right. All right. We have a quick question here. All right, go ahead. And then Paul.
Hey, Mark. Wait. Simple question.
Yeah.
You said was that the African American in this county is 18%. Someone got up and said we're 22%. What number should we be with?
So I've seen numbers that are 18 and 21.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. That's all I need.
Yeah, but it's significant.
Very good. Thank you, Mark.
And it's grown a lot.
You just mentioned there, that's been going on for 10 years under Ike. So you can't solve it because Ike did.
There is a way.
Good evening, County Executive. Paul Scott here. We know each other very well. As you know, I'm a board member of a local community development corporation. I'm also president of a large HOA in the area, and also board member and the treasurer of the George B. Thomas Saturday School. It's interesting, and I really appreciate your overview that you presented this evening regarding the pressures in some of the areas that you're focusing on. We look at what Montgomery County was 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, and look at the county currently, the demographic of the county, which is definitely changing, the makeup, some of the competition that we're facing from some of the other surrounding areas. And you ask yourself, why do people want to live in Montgomery County? And I think schools, again, we look at the diversity of our community, of our county. Public education, public schools is a great equalizer. That's something that we all strive for, shows a success. Public safety, emphasis in our fire, police, and our other first responders and so forth, and being able to make sure that they can relate to the community. And what I call infrastructure, whether it's our roads, other things that we have, our parks and recreation. Those things are great assets. Those things have a big impact on how we enjoy our community, our children, how they grow up, and their perceptions and their success and property values. And the concern that I do have relates to economic development, business, because we have to ask ourselves, how do we finance? We hear a lot of things that our people are asking for, our residents are asking for, but how do you finance that? How do we how do we maintain or advance our competitiveness with other jurisdictions. And what I would like to see a little bit more emphasis in the future regarding economic development, regarding our ability to attract business. I'm really sad and I'm tired when I talk to folks about coming to Montgomery County. The concern that they say is Montgomery County is not a business-friendly place. And that's something that I think that, you know, how our county workers, how we respond, our literature, some of those things, we can do better. And I know you're trying to do that. That's a big, you understand the economics, you understand the value of that. And then our retention, our ability to retain our businesses, our current business base, and also those small, medium, and large. One of the other things I'd like to just encourage you to continue focusing on is recognizing our community partners. We have a great nonprofit community here in Montgomery County. We have also a great faith-based, and I think that there's opportunities to increase the connection, the coordination with a lot of those organizations. I heard a lot of discussion, proper discussion regarding the value and necessity of early child care. A lot of also youth. A lot of those services are provided by our nonprofit and our faith-based organizations. And there's some opportunities where we can lean into that. Also, I talked about economic development, about workforce development. I'm glad to hear that somebody else mentioned that. That's a critical area that we can lean into a little bit more, work with, again, some of our other stakeholders, Montgomery College, current business community, our schools, and to show that we are training, we are preparing our workforce, and that's something that's here and being able to retain it. And then lastly, you talked about special taxing authority and some other things. Like to, and I'm sure you're doing this, but a little bit more regarding how, with our state delegation and also our federal delegation, congressional delegation regarding, and we know the current climate of our country, but even at the state level and even preparing and doing the necessity work, we know that many times when legislation is passed, that takes a while to do the studies and get ourselves on the right track. So those are the things that I'd like to encourage you to focus on and lean into, and I appreciate your continued work in those areas.
So thank you. I'd say just a few things. I could show you the letter that the governor of Virginia wrote in 2012, I think, after they passed the taxing authority for the Northern Virginia counties. He predicted exactly what happened in Tyson's Corner. Because if you have the infrastructure and you have the transportation and people can get there and they're not mired, everybody's not mired in traffic and they've got alternatives, then you can grow your economy. Montgomery County has absolutely refused to invest in transit in any meaningful way. And at least one council member spent time in Annapolis lobbying against us getting the taxing authority because he takes most of his money from developers. And that's a problem. And the council's got to wrap its head around, you can't want to be Virginia and then not do what Virginia does. You got an example across the stupid river. You can see what they did. You know, eyes wide open. This is not rocket science. You could go back and listen to the documents and hear how they talked about what they were going to do and what it was going to produce. We need to do the same thing. It would help us reduce the tax burden on residents. The bill we asked for in Annapolis would let us set a different tax rate for commercial property and residential property, like the District of Columbia, though I wouldn't go that low or that high, and like all the counties in Northern Virginia, but unlike everything in Maryland. And that's why we need a state bill that would let us split the tax rates. The state has got to get serious about investing to attract companies to come to Montgomery County. When I look at how much money Virginia plops down to get companies to move to Virginia, and I've brought projects to the state and said, you know, we could get somebody here. They need. We talked to a solar manufacturer. We have talked to people that do chips. We can't even come close to what Virginia puts on the table, and that's something the state, which is, you know, the legislature, the state has to start thinking bigger than, you know, the legislature in my district, but start thinking if you want good things, you got to make investments. It actually costs money to make money. You ask anybody in business, if they want to grow their business, they invest in equipment and they invest in people. We got to do the same thing.
All right, you're almost done. Good evening. I'm Rachel Breslin. I'm a commissioner with the Human Rights Commission, which all of you know works with the Office of Human Rights. Director Stowe, unfortunately, isn't here tonight because of a family emergency, but he shared this and encouraged members of the commission to come tonight. And I really want to, I know everybody's been here a while, but I want to give a shout out for a book that I'm pretty sure a county executive has read, Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. Yes? Okay, look it up, Bowling Alone. There's lots of great podcasts about it. And it's important and relevant because it talks, and Mr. Putnam specifically talks a lot about the erosion of community and the consequences of that for our country, for our states, and for our county. And it's not, maybe you think like we have a strong community in our church or a strong community right here. It's not just the communities that we feel safe in, but our ability to interact and talk across communities. And the risk with that is the persistent distrust. And we've seen examples of that, unfortunately, within the county. I'm a non-voting member of the Committee Against Hate Violence that someone just spoke about earlier this evening. And members of the community came and talked about their attempt to peacefully protest and the way they have been harassed for weeks attempting to peacefully protest in a community I think we would consider to be pretty liberal and supportive of peaceful protest. It's shocking. Also shocking are the data that we've seen around hate bias incidents in our schools. It is shocking, but not shocking if you understand, again, about the erosion of our community and our ability to interact with each other. What does this have to do with the commission? What does this have to do with OHR? Well, above and beyond the important work that they do to help to resolve issues of discrimination, right, and as it relates to housing or jobs, they also support community events that bring communities together. For example, the friendship picnic or a fifth grade human rights retreat. Unfortunately, funding for the friendship picnic has been very precarious. I can appreciate the funding challenges that you talked about or the budget challenges you talked about tonight, but the scrounging that OHR had to do this year to get the friendship picnic together is unfortunate. So I'd love to see a commitment, $50,000. That's it, $50,000 for the friendship picnic to happen next year.
It's a small ask.
It's a small ask,
Look,
right? So you can commit to that.
Look, I think I can get 50 in there.
Perfect.
Hopefully it survives whatever doesn't fit.
I think we can make it work and continue to have the OHR do the incredible work that they're doing. Awesome. So you're committing to that.
I will put it in. We'll see
Excellent.
where it goes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark. Co-chair Caribbean American Advisory Group, Dara Steen. And at the risk of sounding redundant, I think you've heard this every year, I'd like to ask for a full-time liaison for the Caribbean American Advisory Group. In the last 2 or 3 years, we have seen the amount of work that our liaison has had to do has been more than part-time, more than full-time for that matter. And I'd like to see that position be a full-time position. I'd also like to ask for a bigger budget for us to spend to do some of the work we'd like to do. I know that you've increased it once, but I'd like to have that tripled or quadrupled, at least maybe to about $5,000. The cost of everything has gone up, and we just can't pay for anything.
How much is it now?
$1,000. That's not doing anything.
100 or 5,000?
We went from 500 to 1,000.
Okay.
But I'd like to see $5,000. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm still standing. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope you all learned something about what we do and why we do it, and let us know what else we can do. Thank you.